You're listening to the Elvis Ultimate Fan Channel podcast, the channel that is devoted 100% to the life and career of the biggest selling recording artist of all time, with your host, Steve Francis.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Elvis the Ultimate Fan Channel. As always, in today's show we'll have live phone-ins. I'll put the number up in a few minutes. This day in Elvis history. Elvis photo of the week, also known as the cold shower photo. And also news of an upcoming interview with a really big guest from the Elvis world. First of all, it's with a very, very heavy heart that I start this show. Some of you probably already heard the news. We lost a great friend, a great Elvis friend, a young lady from the Elvis world by the name of Becky Hartley Yancey. She passed away on the 13th, which was yesterday. And if you don't know, Becky was one of Elvis's secretaries from the early 1960s until the mid-1970s. So I was very, very saddened to hear that Becky had passed away. And she was a friend. She was a Facebook friend. But I would also like to think that she was actually a good friend as well, not just a Facebook friend. I spoke to her privately many times on the social network medium. I did try and coax Becky to come on the show and talk about her times with Elvis, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. She always let me down very gently. She was always very gracious and very kind, and it's a very sad day in the Elvis world that we lost Becky, such a lovely lady. And as I said, unfortunately, I could never quite coax her out of retirement, if you like, and to have a telephone conversation with me, much to my disappointment. But I did respect her privacy. So, yeah, I'm sorry to have to start on that sort of note, but it's getting increasingly like that now with the Elvis world, because none of us, unfortunately, are getting any younger. And it seems nearly every month now we lose somebody in the Elvis world. Particularly sad because Becky was such a lovely lady, and I'm pretty sure that Elvis thought a lot of Becky. She actually knew Elvis way before she began working as a secretary in the office with Vernon behind Graceland. And I'm reminded of one of the stories where she was on the roller coaster, the Zippin' Pippin, with Elvis. And of course, Elvis liked to ride it at top speed, round and around and around and around. And with non-stop, somebody would just most normal people would just go around once and then that would be it. Elvis just kept going and going and going, and unfortunately it got too much for Becky, and she threw up, and she actually threw up all over Elvis. So, but Elvis, of course, was very kind, and he understood, and he had a change of clothes anyway, because I'm pretty sure that Elvis always had a change of clothes wherever he went, just in case something like that happened, or if he spilled a drink on his clothes or whatever. So, yes, Becky Hartley Yancey, rest in peace. And my thoughts and prayers go to her family and her friends. That's why we need to roll up our sleeves and not let him die. The young people will not know him without us. Yes, that's a very good point, Aislinn. Yes, very, very good point. Yes, Elvis was a bit of an adrenaline junkie. He he would actually get out of the zipping pippin as well when it sort of got to the top before the big drop. As it just paused, he'd jump out, and then the guys waiting below would see that he was missing from the carriage, and they were scared that he'd fallen out. And then when the thing came round again, the carts came round again, he'd jump back on, and then he'd go down, and he would see the look of horror or relief on the faces of the guys, because they were convinced that he'd fallen out. So, yeah. Hi, Elvis lass. So that's a bit of a downer, unfortunately. Hi, Juan. Yeah, are you sick, Becky? Even though he knew she was, yeah. Yes, Dave, it is cool. It makes my heart a little lighter when I hear that somebody new has been turned on to Elvis or become an Elvis fan. So yeah, that's what we're here for. That is my mission, to try and keep his legacy and his memory going as long as possible, and if at all possible, turn on new fans, so it's his legacy and his memory never dies. So the topic is, if you saw the little picture that goes with this broadcast, how much is a lock of hair, or how much does a lock of hair go for in this day and age, Elvis's hair? And recently, a lock of hair from Elvis was sold for £4,000 sterling, and for everybody across the water in the US, that's approximately $5,530. The hair was collected by hairdresser Homer Gilliland, and I can actually show you a photograph, I believe, of Homer cutting Elvis's hair. There it is, Homer Gilliland cutting Elvis's hair. According to a letter of provenance, even cut the star's hair on tour and on film sets. Well, we do know actually that from about 1964, Larry Geller did that, but obviously this was probably between 1956 and 1964. It was sold by collector Tom Unwin, 75, from Kidsgrove in Staffordshire, UK, who bought it about 10 years ago. Mr. Unwin said he had been a huge Elvis fan since the age of 15 and had collected memorabilia all his life. He said, I've been to his home in Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee, a few times, and met members of his band and his wife Priscilla. She was lovely. According to the letter of provenance, Mr. Gilliland got to know Elvis in the early 1950s as he used to cut his mother's hair, Gladys's hair. And he goes on to say, Mr. Gilliland cut Elvis's hair on tour, movie sets, and at Graceland. When he went to Graceland to cut Elvis's hair, he would wrap up the towel with his hair, and when Mr. Gilliland got home, he would take the hair and place it in a plastic bag. Over the years, Mr. Gilliland collected a sizable amount of hair. After Elvis passed away, he would give a few strands to his fans taped to a card. When he couldn't work anymore, he began to sell it. Claire Howell, music memorabilia valuer at Hanson's Auctioneers, said Elvis's hair had proved popular with fans as it lasts forever. Yeah, well, hair does last a long, long time. It doesn't rot away for quite a few years. And there is... this card contains a lock of Elvis's hair, Elvis Presley, 1935 to 1970. I wonder, can I move that? If I do, I might lose it, so I won't. Yes, I have lost it. Ay. There it is again. Okay. Don't know why I keep doing that. That's because I just don't know what I'm doing. Okay, right. There was something else as well sold by the same collector. And it says, Lamar Fike, to whom this may concern, this racket was one of the last two left in the racquetball building. It was in Elvis's place upstairs in the building. I had just got back to Memphis from Portland, Maine, so this would obviously have been just after Elvis died. I went over to the racquetball building just to sit quietly and remember the good times we had there. I heard somebody upstairs. I went up to see who it was, and it was his dad, Vernon. We talked a while as he was cleaning out some things from the locker. He handed me one of the rackets and said that Elvis would have wanted you to have had this, and I've had the racket ever since August 17th, 1977, the day after Elvis died, obviously. And here is a picture of the racket. Now, I don't know how I don't know how much the racket fetched, how much it sold for, or if it did sell. It might not have sold. I don't have that information. As I say, I have the information that the lock of hair was $4,000 or $5,530, but I don't know how much the racket sold for. But I thought that was quite interesting. As I say, a letter of provenance from Lamar. Let me see here. Somebody said something about Elvis Lass. And you're quite correct, Helen. Elvis Lass also has a very active role in keeping Elvis's legacy alive. And she does. Yeah. She's doing quite good videos at the moment where she just says, that note, Elvis, what was that note? I saw one this morning from My Boy, a live version of My Boy, and she says, that note, Elvis. I like it. Let's have a look. Okay, yeah, I forgot to put that up. I didn't as well, didn't I? Basically, if you want to ring me live, you can do that now on 001 if you're outside the US, 7299 109. 901-7299-109. If there's anything you want to discuss about Elvis, ring that number. My engineer and moderator tonight is Dave, and he's my engineer, and he'll help you out. Yeah, that note, Elvis. What are you doing? How do you do that? Very clever. Maxine says, yeah, she does. Yeah, we all love Elvis Lass, Michelle, and we like her. We like her channel, and we love her passion. And I actually had Michelle on the live phone in there a couple of weeks ago. Very charming. Yeah, you kind of would, wouldn't you? You want a DNA test for the 100% provenance, definitely, I think. I think I might have somebody calling. Hi, who have we got on the line, please?
Hi, it's Maxine.
Oh, hi, Maxine. How are you doing?
Pardon?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you. And yourself?
Now, my listeners probably know Maxine is a regular caller to the show. What would you like to say?
Talk about Elvis's hair.
Yeah, I know.
How expensive, crazy that was.
Well, you think 4,000 was expensive?
I do in a way, but then again, it is quite a lot of money as well. So
Yeah, yeah. But just think, I mean, I know a lot of people would actually buy it because they know it would probably increase in value. It would be the same as like a oil painting or something like that. It's an investment. So buying a lock of Elvis's hair would actually be an investment.
oh, it definitely would, 'cause in future generations, the value of it would just skyrocket.
And I'm sure some ladies would like to actually run their fingers through the little bits of locks. Did you see the actual piece of card that it was stuck to? I mean, there's only like a few strands of hair. It's not like a big lock of hair, unfortunately. You don't get much for
It's
4,000 these days.
No, you don't.
Actually, I'm thinking there, Colonel Parker actually missed a trick there. I'm surprised he didn't try and sell Elvis's hair. But I remember the story about when he was having his hair cut in front of the cameras when he was drafted into the army. And Colonel Parker was extremely strict that it was all swept up, all his hair was swept up and burned.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, which is kind of strange if you think about it. Because he was always one for trying to make an easy buck, and he was always, thinking of ways to make money out of Elvis. So I'm surprised that he did that.
Oh no.
I'm surprised he did that. Okay, anything else you want to share with me and the listeners?
Just that you're all amazing, and yeah, thank you for doing what you do, and I enjoy your channel a lot. So thank you.
You will have heard of Becky Hartley Yancey, wouldn't you? His secretary.
I have, yeah, bless her.
Yeah, I know. Very, very sad. I did try and get her on the show a couple of times, but unfortunately she wasn't doing interviews anymore. This was before she fell ill. This was quite a few months ago. And to my sadness, she wouldn't come on. But yes, bless her, and may she rest in peace. Well, thanks for calling in, Maxine. Very kind.
I think that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye.
There you have it, Maxine. She thinks it was a little bit expensive. I'm just wondering, does anybody else think that £4,000 or $5,500 US dollars? You think the Colonel would have cashed in? I do, Dave, yeah. Jeanette says, if money was no object, I'd pay the 4,000. Yeah. Quite easily. And I wouldn't just buy one lock. I'd buy a couple of locks. So, if the going rate was £4,000, I'd invest 8,000, definitely. Right. I'm going to do this day in Elvis history. If I can find my sheet. I know I'm not, because we have another caller. Let's see who it is this time. Hi, who have we got on the line?
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
How are you today?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, who's that?
This is Robert.
Oh, hi, Robert. How you doing? I think you were trying to get through on Sunday. Dave was telling me you were trying to get through on Sunday.
Yes, I caught you there at the end. It was too late to get through to you.
Yeah. You have quite an interesting story to share with me and the listeners, I believe.
Yes, I had the honor and privilege of living with Charlie Hodge the last 10 years of his life when he lived in Tennessee, East Tennessee.
You actually lived with Charlie?
Yes.
Wow. How did that come about?
Well, I was in the Army, and when I went to Desert Storm, I was in Desert Storm, and I come back from Germany. I came to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My aunt lived in Gatlinburg, and on the weekends I would go there just to rest and clear my mind. And then eventually when I got out, I came to Gatlinburg and lived, and I worked at an antique store there in downtown Gatlinburg, and I worked with a young lady, and her name was Jennifer. Hodge. And it turned out to be that was, well, at the time they weren't married, but they eventually got married. But that was Charlie's wife.
Okay.
And I was needing a place to stay, and Jennifer and Charlie invited me to stay with them. And I ended up staying 10 years with them.
An overnight stay turned into 10 years.
Yeah, well, the relationship with Charlie and Jennifer got to the point where they were like mother and father to me. I called Charlie Dad, and then whenever we went somewhere, he introduced me as his son. So
wow,
I was honored to take on that title. But such a great guy.
This is just this is just mind blowing, because I'm sure you sat around and just talked about Elvis for hours on end.
Me personally, what I didn't try to bring it up in the conversation unless he did, because when he was out in public, that's all that was discussed was him and Elvis. So when we were at home, I tried not to overload him with it, but yes, the conversation of Elvis did come up quite a lot. What was mind-blowing being there was, if you're sitting at home and on the coffee table was the photo albums, and you open the photo albums, it was photos of him and Elvis and Lisa Marie and Priscilla. It was just laying around the house.
Yeah.
That's what blew my mind.
Probably
he had quite a bit of
obviously pictures that other people hadn't seen. Yes,
he had a lot of stuff that wasn't made public that I was privileged to see. He had a lot of things like you're talking about hair and haircuts today. At one period of time before Larry Geller and the regular guys, in between, Charlie would do Elvis's hair. He was dye it for him and trim his hair for him. So he had the clippers that he trimmed Elvis's hair with at the house.
Yeah. And is there any stories that stick in your mind that Charlie told you that maybe might not be as well known as some of the ones that, because there's a lot of stories that just go around and they're kind of just rehashed and repeated. But was there any stories that that Charlie told you about Elvis and his life with Elvis that sticks out in your mind?
Well, one was, Steve, there's always been the narrative, what's put out there in as far as public relations and stuff like that. I know one story when Elvis met the Beatles. I think it was described as, they came in and Elvis was playing a bass and so forth and stuff. What Charlie told me was, when the Beatles came in, Elvis was upstairs in his pajamas, and he come down. He wasn't sitting there playing the bass like they described, and he came down, and the four lads sat on the couch, and Elvis was in the chair, and I guess they were overtaken, and they weren't saying anything, and they weren't speaking. Elvis said, "Well, guys, if you ain't got nothing, I'm going back upstairs."
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah. You can't blame him, really, if they were just going to sit there and look at him.
Yeah, but Charlie said eventually, they got on pretty good.
Yeah,
and started loosening up.
Yeah. Well, you see, the thing. If I met Elvis, I probably would have just sat there and stared at him.
Yeah, you often see photographs of people standing next to Elvis, and they're looking straight up at him like they're mesmerized.
Yeah. That's one thing that strikes me when I see photographs, all of Elvis and there's people around him. All eyes are on Elvis. And also another thing that always sticks out in my mind is everybody else just looks so ordinary compared to when Elvis is in a photograph. There's Elvis, and then everybody else is surrounded by him, and they just look so ordinary. They're probably just normal looking people, but when Elvis, you can't compete with Elvis. He just outshines everybody.
He did, and even looking at his photographs, it felt like something was shining through the photograph at you. Just, he was a beautiful man. You can't argue that.
They also say that photographs and movies didn't do his looks justice, and you know how good he looks in a photograph and in the movies, so he must have been absolutely phenomenal looking.
Oh, exactly. When he came on the stage in '68, when he came out in that leather suit, and was standing there, had his hands on his hip.
Yeah.
I'm like, my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, he had good looks and spades. That guy did.
Yeah,
he was definitely blessed.
They also said that when he walked into a room, even if you had your back to the door, you could feel him walking in.
Yeah, Charlie said he had a very strong presence wherever he went.
Yeah. So
Charlie,
you lived with Charlie and his wife for the last 10 years of Charlie's life.
Yes.
Right. So you were.
Yeah, I wish I could have been there when he lived at Graceland, but no, I was the last 10 years of his life. He performed at the Memories Theater there in Pigeon Forge.
Yeah.
Actually, when he left Graceland in '78, and then when he left Graceland, he performed the whole time that up till about 7 or 10 days before he passed away. He performed.
Yeah. Yes. And I think it was cancer he passed away with, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was lung cancer. He always kept his cigarettes in his left front pocket on his shirt, or he always wore a members only jacket.
Yeah.
And he smoked like 3 or 4 packs of cigarettes a day. He'd put one out and he'd reach over and grab and light another one.
Robbie, that's great. Thanks for sharing this with us. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us before you go?
Charlie spoke about there's always been the narrative that Elvis didn't be part of writing any songs, and there was 2 songs that Elvis with Red West and Charlie that Charlie said that he was a contributor on. So I don't know if that's still the narrative out there that Elvis never wrote or contributed to a song, but he did. There was 2 of them.
It comes up every few months in the press that Elvis didn't write any songs and blah, 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 blah. And he did, yes. I mean, Red West and Charlie and Elvis did You'll Be Gone.
Yes, that's one.
In the 60s, yeah. So he did. I mean, I know where the press are coming from, because Elvis's name was put against some records because he wanted part of the publishing. Heartbreak Hotel was one of the first ones. Now, Elvis didn't write Heartbreak Hotel, but his name is against it because of the publishing company.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
but I know there's 2 songs that he should be credited on. One that was in '61 that was a song about his mother, and then the one that he helped write with Charlie, You'll Be Gone.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, I know, but I mean, the press will keep pushing that every so often. When they have got nothing else to write about Elvis, they'll push that out again, that Elvis didn't write any songs. Doesn't really matter. He's the biggest selling recording artist in history. Probably always will be, and that's good enough for me anyway.
Exactly.
Thanks very much, Rob, and please do call in again for a chat. We'd love to hear from you again.
Yeah, I was honored to be on your show, and I'll call back in because there is more stories. I know we have to worry about the time and stuff, but I'll call back in.
But there's always I try and do a new topic every week, and if you want to ring in and talk about the topic, or if you have any information about the topic that I bring up, then by all means, please do call in.
Okay, great, Steve. Thank you.
All right, all the best.
Thank you, buddy.
That was Robbie. Very, very nice gentleman. I was looking forward to talking to him because my engineer told me that he tried to get through last week, but I had to cut the call short. I had to cut the show short because of the football. And I was on the brink of doing... Yes, Jeanette, it was a great call. I agree. Ludane says nice call as well. I agree. I was on the brink of doing this day in Elvis history. July 14th, 1961, Elvis was in production, Follow That Dream. 1963, the film's cast and crew of Viva Las Vegas, where they stayed at the traveled to Las Vegas, where they stayed at the Sahara Hotel for location shooting. 1966, this day in 1966, Elvis was in production for Double Trouble. 1968, Elvis is in California relaxing before heading to Apache Junction for filming of his next movie, Charo, later in the month. 1969, during this period, Elvis spoke with many musicians he knew about accompanying him to Las Vegas. Of course, this in July 1969, he was on the brink of opening on the 31st of July 1969 in the International Hotel. So this day in 1969, he was furiously trying to put a band together. 1970, rehearsals for the upcoming shows in Las Vegas were held at the MGM studios in Culver City, and they were filmed for use in the documentary entitled That's the Way It Is. We're all familiar with those rehearsals. Great. Elvis looked like he was having great fun during those rehearsals, and of course, he looked absolutely fantastic, as we know. When didn't he look fantastic? Elvis was in Lake Tahoe. Elvis was in Lake Tahoe in preparation for the opening on this day in 1971. 1973, at home in Graceland, preparing to record at Stack Studios in Memphis later on in the month. So he was probably trying to get some material together. Now, 1975. This is a very, very interesting day in 1975. Elvis performed at the Civic Center, Springfield, Massachusetts, an 8:30 show. He returned to the same venue the following evening, and it was at this concert that he threw his 1968 Gibson J200 ebony guitar into the audience after breaking a string. Discrepancy as to if it was the 15th or the 16th when he did this, but we know that on the 15th the band members wore red, and on the 16th they wore blue. Elvis wore the totem pole on the 15th, and the chicken bone on the 16th. So let's have a look at some pictures there, because I do actually have this here now. Okay, so here we go. This is the totem pole, and this is the 15th. Okay. There he is again. And there we see a wider shot. Good old Charlie, who we were just talking about. And it says that they wore red on the 15th and blue on the 16th. So there is the 15th. Okay. And there's red again. And there's actually Elvis just coming on, actually. Might just move that. Okay, there's Elvis coming on. And when you look at this, you can see that at the base of the guitar, it's got the Kempo. He added a Kempo karate decal to that guitar. Alrighty. Then we move on to the 16th. And the 16th, you can see now the chicken bone, and they've got blue suits. But it's the same guitar. Okay, so he couldn't have thrown it out on the 15th because he still has it there on the 16th. There it is again, a bit clearer, and you can see the Kempo badge on the bottom of the guitar, and you can definitely clearly see the blue suits the band is wearing, and they were wearing blue on the 16th. Okay, and there is him throwing the guitar, and you can see the Kempo decal at the bottom of it, and you can see the blue suits. This looks like the back of Jerry Chef's head, actually, just ducking out of the way. So that tells us that it was the 16th, tomorrow, in other words, July the 16th, that he threw that guitar into the audience. 1976, Elvis flew from Palm Springs to Las Vegas with Linda. Oh, I better put that back there so I can see what people are saying. Elvis flew from Palm Springs to Las Vegas with Linda, where he once again put himself under Dr. Ganham's care. And on this day in 1977, he was at Graceland, taking it easy. Pick of the week, as I like to call it, or some people like to call it the cold shower photograph. And I have a little bit of information about this. Are you ready, young ladies? Okay, there you go. Elvis stayed up all night on the way. Oh, sorry. This was taken on March the 7th, 1960, in the office behind Graceland. Elvis stayed up all night on the way home to Memphis. The train arrived in Memphis at 7:45 a.m. in the middle of another snowstorm. After greeting fans, Elvis rode out to Graceland. In the afternoon, there was a press conference in Vernon's office in a small building just behind Graceland. Elvis told everybody how glad he was to be home again, and Anita Wood joined him later in the evening. Elvis last says, absolutely beautiful. And look at the colour of his hair as well. That's what strikes me. It was his natural colour again, because he hadn't really been dyeing it and so forth whilst he was in the army. And unfortunately, over the next few days, he would dye it. And then when he went to Hollywood in April, the next month, the Paramount made him cut his hair, because a GI wouldn't really have hair that long. So he had to have it cut for GI Blues. So what does everybody think of that photograph? Are we going to need extra blood pressure tablets? Maxine says, I preferred his natural colour. He shouldn't have had to dye his hair. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think the natural colour suited his face, actually. But then again, we kind of got used to seeing him with the dark hair. And we all know why he did it. He thought it looked better in the movies, and he wanted to. I think he took his lead from Tony Curtis. He wanted the Tony Curtis look, didn't he? Juan says, one day I'll get a Gibson J200, and I won't be throwing it in the audience. I know, yeah. I think Elvis was just a little bit frustrated that night when he broke a string, and I think he said something like, "Whoever caught that guitar can keep it, and I hope you enjoy it." Yep, Loudain, March 1960 equals gorgeous. Yeah, he looks absolutely fabulous there, doesn't he? It's a great photograph. Absolutely fantastic photograph with the red curtain behind him and the red leather seat as well. He just looked so fabulous when he came out of the army in 1960. It was definitely one of the best times he looked. I mean, I know we have the 68 comeback special, and that's the way it is. Elvis on tour. He looked particularly good in 1975 as well, spring, summer 1975, but extra special in 1960. Extra special. I've done this day in history. This is the photo of the week. I want to tell you the big guest who is coming up now. It isn't coming up today. I haven't had a chance to put it all together yet, but it is in post-production, and it will be coming in the near future. And the guest I was speaking to yesterday, and I probably will have to split it into two parts as well, was Larry Geller. If anybody is interested in hearing me speak to Larry Geller, well, that will be coming up on this show in the next few days. I can't exactly tell you when I'll be posting Larry's chat that I had with him, because, as I say, I have to do post-production, I have to do some editing, and probably split it into two as well. So I'm hoping that that will be of interest to people. Larry Geller. It's funny, we mentioned Larry Geller earlier when Robbie was on the phone. He said that, we know that Larry cut Elvis's hair during the movies, but also Charlie used to tidy it up as well for him. Be Happy says yes. Dave says you finally got Larry. Oh, yay, Steve. Yeah, thanks, Elvis Lass. Karen says that's great. Well, as I say, I really do hope you're looking forward to it, and I hope you'll get out of it what I got out of it. And I have to say that I was just blown away by Larry. You know, some of the things he told me and his overall demeanor. Just a really, really great guy. Really, really great guy. I mean, I know there's stories that go around about Larry. You know, just a little bit of resentment and things like that. You know, you get that everywhere you go. But yeah, really, really great guy. Really great guy. And as I say, I'll try and work on it as quickly as I can and bring it to you. Larry is full of info. Yeah. I mean, I learned stuff. Larry told me stuff that was new to me. So that's the way it is. I can't wait for that, Steve. Thanks, Chris. Well, as I say, I hope you'll... Patty Parry, I think it was, not Party, cut Elvis's hair also. In fact, Patty did the cut between the Aloha from Hawaii rehearsal and the actual broadcast show. Patty Parry did, yeah. Marie's the name, says she can't wait. Yeah, Be Happy says very spiritual. Yes, he is, and he's a great guy as well. And I'm hoping that he told me to keep in touch, so who knows, I could actually speak to him again. I'd love to speak to him again, I really would. I think I can take the number off. I don't think I'm going to have any more calls tonight. Unless anybody would like to call in, I will just leave that number there for a few more seconds. The Memphis Mafia never understood Elvis's spiritual searching, and they resented Larry, Steve. Well, we do actually touch on that slightly. Larry tells me something that Elvis said to him about the MMs, the Memphis Mafia. Now, it wasn't derogatory or anything like that, but the point was made that, we'll leave it at that, because like I say, there's no point in me telling you, because if I tell you, you won't want to listen to the interview. So were you floored when he rang you? Well, I rang him. I rang Larry. I set it up and so forth. Paul, I can't remember if I did ask your question. I got to ask a few questions, and if I do get to speak to Larry again, I will definitely make a point of asking your question, but I can't off the top of my head remember how many questions I got through, but I did put some fan questions to him, and he was very gracious in answering them, I must admit. Thank you, Michelle. That's very kind. So we come to the end of another show. Thanks again. I hope you can join me live on Sunday when I will be discussing another Elvis topic. Don't forget, Fan of the Month quiz, Elvis Song of the Week, This Day in Elvis History, and of course a brand new Elvis photo of the week. If you want to support this channel, you can buy me coffee with the link below.